Hi, folks. I'm Debate Brother number 2. And guess what? It is June 25th. In case some of you don't know what that date means, back in 1876, on this day exactly, in Billings, Montana, General George Armstrong Custer, although he was a colonel at the time, but everyone still calls him General Custer. Custer was annihilated with his army by Native American forces led by Sioux and Cheyenne Indians under the command of Chief Sitting Bull of the Sioux and Crazy Horse of the Sioux. There's been many debates and stories and legends from both sides. Who was the enemy? Who was the hero? What was the outcome? How did it happen? How did a modern army lose against a Native American force? Well, I tell you which side I'm on. I'm basically on the Native American side. Even though I'm not Native American, I've learned about what their culture was like from meeting some real Native Americans and reading about them, and from films too. But still, I feel sorry for those soldiers. Some of them were just farm boys and young men and fathers, but they were just following their orders. But enough about the history of the story. We're here to talk about the legend of Custer and Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull by going through a group of films here that I own. Right here. I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, Custer has been told as heroes and villains through all kinds of media, as well as books and comics and other things. But we're only focusing on the films, and these we're going to get started on. Now, this film from director John Ford, starring Henry Fonda and John Wayne, is not Custer, but was inspired by Custer in his battle at Little Bighorn. Henry Fonda plays Colonel Owen Thursday, who's trying to put the Apaches back on the reservation. They left for a similar reason that the Sioux left the reservations too. They don't want to live that way. They want to live in their own way. John Wayne plays an Indian sympathizer, but he still wants to follow orders. Thursday marches out with his army and tries to order the Apaches back onto the reservation. And if they don't go, they will be attacked. And you can guess how that goes. John Ford filmed all on beautiful locations in Arizona with authentic Apache Indians too. The film cast is amazing too. You got John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Shirley Temple, Ward Bond, Hugh O'Brien, and many others. The film has been declared 100% by critics. And this was one of the first films I saw that was about, well, inspired by Custer, but I thought he was Custer when I first saw this film, but I learned quickly. Secondly, this is another great film. It's called Sitting Bull, directed by Sidney Sawak, or something. Sidney Salco. I haven't looked up anything else what this director's done, but the movie he directed, he filmed in Mexico. Most of the Native Americans are mostly Spanish actors. The Indian chief, Sitting Bull, who's the main part of the story, is played by J. Cullen Nash. He was a wonderful actor. The story is about a young major called Parrish, who wants to try to keep the peace between the whites and the Indians, and tries to keep the relationship he has with his general's daughter, his girlfriend. The film is very historically inaccurate. This movie, Custer is sent down to Little Bighorn for peace, to make ready for the president to meet Chief Sitting Bull. But unfortunately, a misunderstanding happens, and the Battle of Little Bighorn happens, annihilating Custer. This film portrays Custer more as an untrustworthy man. He's out to try to make a name for himself in a way, and he doesn't trust the Indians, even though our hero says they won't be wanting to attack. This film is a very historically inaccurate as well. Starring Robert Shaw as General Custer in the movie Custer of the West. Robert Shaw's wife plays Custer's wife, Mrs. Custer. This was one of the very few films where Shaw and his wife would actually work together. The film stars Jeffrey Hunter also, very great part. Jeffrey Hunter plays Captain Ben Teen, who sympathizes with the Indians and wants there to be peace between their people as well. But anyway, this film was directed by Robert Cedal Mack. I don't know anything about this director either, but this film is all shot in Italy. It feels more like a Biscotti Western. Custer is sent out after all this trouble the Indians are causing to put them back on the reservation. But I'll tell you, there's no main Indian character by name, just known as the Cheyenne Chief. Sitting Bull's not in it, Crazy Horse is not in it. The cast sort of changes from thing to when you read on it or in the information. They say the leader of the Indians is Dull Knife to Wooden Leg to Sitting Bull. They never gave the chief in this movie a name, but they only made it clear that he's a Cheyenne Indian. This film is not exactly the greatest nor the best, but I love it just because I love Robert Shaw, because he was successful in Jaws. Although this was filmed in the 60s, just a couple of years before he did Jaws. But I love it because of the outfits, the music, and the sets they do, and the Little Bighorn fight. This was one of the first few Custer movies I ever did see when I first started Netflix. This film is another very historically inaccurate one. Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland's last movie together. They died with their boots on. Directed by Raquel Walsh. Anyway, this film starts with General Custer's days at West Point. Actually filmed on actual location at West Point itself. And if you look real carefully, if you watch the opening scene, you can actually see a car moving in the background. Anyway, the story shows Custer moving from the days of when he was a cadet all the way to become a general, just in time for the Battle of Gettysburg. And then after the war, he goes out west, where he ends up meeting Chief Crazy Horse, played by Anthony Quinn. This movie does not have any historically accurate things, almost. There's very little accuracy. Crazy Horse tries to keep peace if the whites will keep peace, but a corrupt government agency causes the war to break out between the whites and the Indians, and Custer is sent out to stop the war, which leads to the Battle of Little Bighorn, which is very inaccurate on how it happened too. This movie, Custer sacrifices himself to get the truth exposed about the corruption in the government. This film still is well made and well beautifully shot and done really great. And Custer does really good, played by Errol Flynn. I wish they had made more movies like this. Now this was a film I learned from what's it called? Magazine. I found a magazine. It was mentioning about Native Americans, and it mentioned some films, and the title was in here, Tonka, from Walt Disney Company. This movie stars Sal Mineo playing the lead role, and the opposite lead role is Phil Carey, who plays Captain Keogh, a man who died at Little Bighorn, who owned the horse that survived at the Little Bighorn, Comanche. The film is all shot in Oregon, and it's directed by Lewis R. Foster. White Bull was a real Indian, nephew of Chief Sitting Bull, and he claimed he had killed Custer, but this movie does not really focus on that idea. White Bull, Mineo, is just a young brave who wants to prove himself. He proves himself by capturing a wild horse and taming it, and names him Tonka. And I think that's a real Sioux word. It means the Great One. That's what they say in the film. But I don't really know for sure. Anyway, Yellow Bull has a cousin. White Bull has a cousin named Yellow Bull. There's so many bulls in this movie. You get White Bull, Yellow Bull, and Sitting Bull. It tends to be a bit of a mess up when you try to pronounce the names. White Bull's cousin Yellow Bull is very mean. He was one Indian I really loved to see get killed, and it did happen. After White Bull frees the horse, after seeing how his cousin Yellow Bull treats it, Captain Keogh gets the horse, which eventually White Bull and Keogh cross paths, become friends because of a horse, but peace cannot be declared, which eventually leads to the Battle at Little Bighorn. The Battle at Little Bighorn sequence is really done real well, and apparently there's got some historical accuracies in that battle. Two, I'll point out. One, Custer had a reporter who died there on the battlefield with him, and also Custer was reported shot in the head. They actually show a small bullet hole in the actor's head when he dies in the film. Anyway, about Phil Carey real quick, he had his turn at playing Custer as well in the movie called The Great Sioux Massacre, which is not even on DVD here in America, only in Spain. So that film needs to come to DVD here in America. And that film was great. This film, Little Big Man, from Arthur Penn, changed my point of view on the Native Americans forever, besides Dances with Wolves and Soldier Blue. This movie stars Dustin Hoffman as the title character, although the name Little Big Man was the name of a real Cheyenne chief. But I don't know anything really about him because I haven't really looked him up. This movie is about a young boy named Jack Crabb who's raised by the Cheyenne, and he knows their way of life. He ends up being taken back to the white settlements, where he tries to find his place in the world. He makes a lot of good friends. One of them is Wild Bill Hickok. It's also based on a novel. I never read the novel, but my uncle did. And he told me that he would meet Wyatt Earp and Buffalo Bill and a few others of history, but they didn't go that far. They only made him meet Custer and Wild Bill. Custer is played by Richard Mulligan. And boy, he was one villainous soldier in this movie. You think he's going to be a good guy, but instead he's an Indian hater who's out to destroy them and be made a big hero. It's filmed on beautiful locations in all these places of the West. And on the battlefield of Little Bighorn that they do in the film is only a couple of miles from the actual Little Bighorn River. They filmed not too far from the actual location where it happened, so it makes it feel so much more authentic. This movie from Cecil B. DeMille is amazing. Custer is a side character in this film, The Plainsman, starring Gary Cooper as Wild Bill Hickok and Jean Arthur as Calamity Jane, two real people of history as well. This film is amazing. Custer is a side character and he's not portrayed as a crazy man, a madman, but a very strict man. And he only has a few minutes total. I've counted it, just a few minutes. But they are very memorable. And the battlefield sequence where they shoot Little Bighorn is not far either. It was all filmed in Montana as well. And in the Dakotas as well. South Dakota and others. The towns mostly were just sets, but all the outdoor sequences were filmed in beautiful outdoors with thousands of Native Americans who came in to play the history of their people. This film does not sympathize with the Native Americans. It mostly portrays them more as bloodthirsty people, mostly. But it's a very amazing film, and it's been declared 100%. Now, this is a TV series from executive producer Steven Spielberg. Into the West, with amazing stories. It starts off in the 1850s and moves all the way to the 1890s. Custer appears in only 2 episodes, and the last episode he is in has his Little Bighorn battle. It tries to be as historically accurate as possible, but using fictional characters, meeting these historical characters and seeing the historical events that unfold in the West during the Indian Wars, like the Grattan Massacre, the Sand Creek Massacre, the Washita River Massacre, Little Bighorn and Wounded Knee, and all these other famous historical figures as well, from Sitting Bull to, oh brother, what's his name? Colonel Shivington, who I really hate. This series is amazing, with an all-star cast. Too many great names to name, but one of them I will tell you, and he's one of my favorite actors. His name was Wes Studi. He plays Chief Black Kettle, who died at the hands of Custer at the Washita River. He does a great job of portraying Chief Black Kettle. Now, this is a documentary series called The American West. It doesn't just focus on the Native Americans and Custer. It focuses on Jesse James, Wyatt Earp, and a few others. But this is a documentary that uses actors and everything to portray the history. They don't focus on episode. They go through times, what's going on through the 1870s with each of these individuals. We see what goes on with Custer and how what's his name? Jesse James took to it when he heard of Custer's defeat. This does a great job, and it ends with Wyatt Earp's days because he was one of the last great gunfighters of the old legends. Anyway, the battlefield is all shot on on an unknown location. Very cheaply done, but the outfits they have are really great, and the acting is okay. I don't know any of these actors because it's just people they pick up who looks almost identical to some of these photographs and paintings. It's an okay thing. I really like it. Now this is a great documentary series also shot on locations of Montana. But it doesn't just focus on Custer. There's two other documentaries that focuses on Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid called The Wild West. A 3-parter TV series, each episode focusing on one of those two elements. The episode about Custer is amazing. Shot on location, as I said before, in Montana, but don't really know any of the actors. But it does a great job. They really have them get all these amazing outfits, and they really have these Native American actors speaking in the actual language. The action is really great. The story is done well. I call it a pretty good documentary, which I highly recommend. Now this is another documentary. In the last video of the day, what I'm going to talk about, Betrayal at Little Bighorn. This documentary once again uses actors to portray the story of what happened at Little Bighorn. But I still don't know any of them. Just a bunch of people that the History Channel picked up. Anyway, this movie tries to explain what happened. Did Custer's soldiers abandon him? Did they only risk saving? Did they only stay behind to try to protect themselves at a higher ground? How did the Indians work against Custer? Why did the soldiers not go to help him? Could they have saved him even if they tried? It does a really good job. An actual shot on location of Montana itself around the battlefield. It's really done real well. It's beautiful too. Great outfits, great reenactments. Really great. Now, there are several films I want to mention that I wish would come to DVD here in America. And one of them was The Great Sioux Massacre. But two films I would really love to see come to DVD here in America, because they're available in other countries around the world, mostly Germany and England. Son of the Morning Star, starring Gary Cole as General Custer, the most historically accurate version ever of Custer's experiences, and Crazy Horse as well as the movie from '96, Crazy Horse, starring Michael Greyeyes as Crazy Horse. Very historically accurate to what the Native American culture was like and what Crazy Horse's life was like. Starring Peter Horton as General Custer, portrayed pretty accurately to what the character was really like. It appeared on TV. Both are TV movies, but none have been put on DVD, except for in other countries. They need to be released here in America so people can enjoy those films. Anyway, my next video, I do not know what I'm going to do. Probably maybe my video collection, but I'm having a real hard time getting everything sorted and taken care of. I probably won't have another video on that until maybe late July, or I don't know. But it will be this year, I promise you. But however, this July, I just remembered, there will be a review video. I Know What You Did Last Summer. The third official sequel. We'll talk about that some other time, though. So long.